Give the floor to the representative of Israel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, Council, from the very first days following Hamas's invasion and brutal massacre on October 7th, Israel's goals have been very clear: to bring all our hostages back home and to dismantle Hamas's capabilities. Israel is committed to these goals: to free all the hostages, to destroy Hamas's military and governing capabilities, and to ensure that Gaza does not pose a threat to Israel in the future. And as we have echoed numerous times in this very chamber, once these goals are met, the war will end. If Hamas were to release the hostages and turn themselves in, not one more shot needs to be fired. Yet sadly, for the past 8 months, Hamas has refused. 120 hostages are still being held by Hamas in appalling conditions. To this day, Hamas continues firing rockets at Israeli towns and cities and advancing their goal of murdering every Israeli. Members of the Council, it is Hamas that is preventing this war from ending. Hamas and Hamas alone. It is the genocidal jihadists who started this war and who choose to prolong it. Pressure must be applied upon Hamas, and blame must be placed where it belongs, on Hamas terrorists. This Council has adopted 3 resolutions calling for the release of hostages, and each time Hamas has utterly ignored your request. Hamas does not care what the Council has to say, because they have never been held responsible for their crimes by the Council. The pressure on the terrorists should have begun long ago, but it's still not too late. It must begin now. Colleagues, Hamas's refusal to release the hostages through diplomacy has proven that the effort to bring our hostages home must also include military means. And this Saturday was the perfect example of how this can be achieved. As a result of a heroic operation, the IDF rescued 4 hostages from Gaza. These hostages, Noah Argamani, Almog Meir Jan, Andrei Kuzlov, and Shlomi Ziv, were being held in residential buildings by Palestinian families. While the hostages were guarded by terrorists, Gazan civilians were their jailers. These so-called innocent civilians were not only cooperating with the terrorists, but were complicit in their heinous crimes. As the world witnessed on Saturday, it is Israeli soldiers who sacrificed their lives to bring our hostages back home, while Hamas intentionally sacrifices Gazan children to prevent us from rescuing hostages. Israel regrets any harm to civilians, but it must be emphasized that Palestinians who cooperate with Hamas and take part in their war crimes are not uninvolved. This is the reality we face. The loss of life in Gaza is a tragedy, but if you don't put the blame on Hamas, you're advancing their strategy. Colleagues, Israel stands firm on our principles, and they have not changed. We will continue until all of the hostages are returned and until Hamas military and governing capabilities are dismantled. These have been our goals from day one. Just as President Biden stated on May 31st, Hamas must not stay in power. Israel will not let Hamas rearm or regroup so that Gaza can pose a threat to Israel. This is the unwavering goal that we are determined to achieve. This also means that Israel will not engage in meaningless and endless negotiations which can be exploited by Hamas as a means to stall for time. Mr. President, Hamas is solely responsible for this war. They invaded Israel, massacring innocents and taking hundreds hostages. They continue to hold our loved ones in Gaza and continue targeting Israel. They use Gazans as human shields while furthering their genocidal goals. The time has come for this Council to finally hold Hamas accountable, to finally place the blame where it belongs, to finally condemn terror. As the Security Council, it is your duty to apply relentless pressure on Hamas terrorists and ensure that all the hostages return home. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is Dejobnik signing off.